So I've been playing and watching a lot of XDefiant during the closed beta, and I wanted to take some time to talk about it here. Like me, you've probably seen the onslaught of recent hype around this game lately. Some going as far as to say it could be a Call of Duty killer when it comes to arena FPS, and others being a little more restrained and saying it's shaping up to be a very viable alternative to Call of Duty and could snatch a good portion of players who prefer the classic COD style and have just been alienated by the direction of the franchise from Modern Warfare 2019 onward. I'm just going to say this plainly and then I'll try to explain it a bit more. I hate this game so far. I don't think I've rage quit a game so many times since I played League of Legends religiously nearly 10 years ago. And it sucks to say this because on paper, XDefiant has so many things that I and other dedicated FPS players have wanted since Call of Duty basically decided to stop trying when it comes to multiplayer. No skill-based matchmaking, ranked playlists, a good-sized map pool at launch, map design that mostly abides by the classic 3-lane style, good visibility, a distinct visual identity, a good variety of guns with their actual names instead of made-up ones to circumvent copyright, an attachment system with detailed statistics that also isn't overly bloated and complicated but still retains some depth, decent frame rates, movement that feels closer to older Call of Duty games, a fully fledged practice area. I could list more things I like about this game that other people have also praised, but it doesn't change the way I feel when I play it. XDefiant just doesn't feel good to play, at all really. It's something that doesn't really come across in every video I've watched and is something that feels like is being downplayed by a lot of creators covering this game. Something about it just feels off. Feels hacked together, feels more like a knockoff that is effective, but still noticeably a knockoff. It's almost like describing the feel of old Call of Duty to people who have never played it, but only watched a few videos of it, and then they tried to replicate it. I know that it's the former head of Infinity Ward, so I'm not saying that the developers have never played this game, it's just a metaphor to illustrate the feeling. The way it feels really reminds me of how 2042 felt very early in its life cycle, where you could see the battlefield bones there, but just something didn't feel right. There are some things that I'm willing to chalk up to being a beta though, and they will hopefully be fixed by launch. It's no secret by now that the netcode in this game is very poor, which is fine. It's a beta, and part of the purpose of a beta is to stress the servers and make necessary improvements. That being said, this is the worst connection experience I've ever had in a AAA beta or even alpha. Do you like dying after running around corners? How about mag dumping into a target accurately with only 1 or 2 bullets actually registering? Maybe getting half a dozen hit markers on the enemy only to get one tapped by an M4 or an AK is what really gets your engine going, especially when you're also using the M4 or the AK. To say these experiences are commonplace would be an understatement. One of these things happens in nearly every single engagement. To be clear, I'm not emphasizing this because I think it will be a problem at launch. I'm optimistic that this will be significantly better in the future, but part of me still has things like this happen in Call of Duty, and there's no real guarantee that it won't happen here, especially with Ubisoft's spotty track record when it comes to multiplayer games. Even World War III's beta, with its well-known server performance issues, felt better to play from a server perspective than XDefiant. There are some other minor complaints that don't bother me too much, and these will probably be fixed by launch as well. Most animations need to be smoothed out, especially mantling animations. They're really jerky and distracting. Sprint to fire speed, which feels oddly slow, will hopefully also be improved, along with jumping while shooting and some other little minor quirks. But I wanted to get to the things that are essentially deal breakers for me about this game from a design perspective. One is something you may not think is a big deal when I say it, but it's extremely frustrating for me every time I play. You can't go prone in this game. It's asinine to me that this is an intentional part of the game. I understand wanting to discourage drop shotting. A lot of people hate it as a tactic. In that case, just do what Battlefield has always done. Battlefield, you can't ADS while going prone. Shit, you can even add a lot more spread when firing from the hip while going prone, or even have some kind of delay before being able to fire again once you press the prone button. I just can't stand that when I'm being shot at from a distant enemy, I can't immediately drop to the ground behind cover. It's just insanity to me. It feels so unnatural and just betrays all of my instincts when playing an FPS. The other thing, which is obviously a controversial design decision in this game, is the hero shooter aspect. I hate it. Full stop. The abilities make the time to kill in this game feel extremely inconsistent and frustrating, especially since this is marketed as an arcade FPS that emphasizes gun skill. I don't feel like my gun skill matters when people have crazy heals and projectile shields. The reason stuff like this works in Overwatch is because Overwatch isn't strictly a hero FPS. It's more like a MOBA with a lot of first-person shooter mechanics. And in Battlefield 2042, most of the abilities are just small passives or unique equipment that have a more toned-down impact in gunfights. Funnily, XDefiant has started to remind me more and more of the new Modern Warfare 2. That game had an identity crisis brought on by this odd amalgamation of forcing tactical and arcade FPS mechanics that don't really suit each other into the same game. So Modern Warfare 2 just felt like a bad version of classic arcade Call of Duty while also feeling like a bad version of something like Insurgency Sandstorm. And XDefiant feels like it has a similar identity crisis. To me, this is just bad Black Ops 2 mixed with bad Overwatch. And because of this strange in-between, I really don't think XDefiant has much of a chance when it releases if the developers don't include a no abilities mode similar to the no build mode of Fortnite. I think the hero aspects aren't deep enough and impactful enough to draw people away from Overwatch, which is also free to play, but I think they're annoying enough to alienate the target audience of Call of Duty veterans that have been searching for a new FPS to grind. I know the hero shooter element won't put others off as much as me, but personally, I'm just so tired of this being in so many games now. It's really disappointing because XDefiant does have a lot of potential. On the off chance I get into a match where players aren't really using the abilities, I can see the glimmers of old Call of Duty there, the glory days that I miss so much. As it stands, I just don't see it becoming anything more than the other titles Ubisoft has abandoned, like Rainbow Six Extraction and Hyperscape. I predict it'll get a blip of popularity when it first releases, and then quickly taper off to an extremely small player base, with support for the game likely ending in a year to a year and a half after launch. And I do just want to leave you all with a bit of clarification though. XDefiant is not a terrible game. It's not even really a bad game. It's just that its most interesting and highly marketed selling point, being a fast-paced arena FPS akin to classic Call of Duty in an age where every shooter is a battle royale or extraction shooter, is completely hampered by forcing something in that doesn't belong. It just makes it feel inconsistent and it destroys the pacing. But hey, it'll be free to play when it releases, so there's nothing to lose by playing other than a bit of your time. So if you want, give it a shot when it releases. You might find something to love. But that does it for me, and I want to hear from all of you. Are you interested in XDefiant, and will you be playing it when it releases? For those that have had time with the beta, what are your thoughts on the game? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to talk about it. With that, leave a like or a dislike. I'll see you all in the next video.